Well, greetings and welcome to There's More to the Story on Monday, following our emphasis for 2 weeks on Moses. Moses in the story of Exodus is a massive story. It's just a huge, important story. From being called out of the burning bush to going to Pharaoh to bringing the people through the Red Sea to the 40 years of wilderness wanderings, 10 Commandments, all of that. It's a huge story. Moses was called out of the burning bush to let my people go, to bring them out of the captivity and bring them to the promised land. Interesting thing is that Moses never made it to the promised land. Moses died before he brought the people into the promised land. At the end of page 88 in the story, let me just read that. Moses had been leading the people. He's had some fits of anger. He's had lots of different stuff. Kind of maybe some times of not quite believing whether God was going to do what God said he was going to do. Page 88. Then Moses climbed Mount Nebo from the plains of Moab to the top of Pisgah across from Jericho. Remember, Joshua fit the battle of Jericho. That's coming next. There the Lord showed him the whole land from Gilead to Dan, all of Naphtali, the territory of Ephraim and Manasseh, all the land of Judah as far as the Mediterranean Sea, the Negev, and the whole region from the valley of Jericho, the city of palms as far as Zoar. Then the Lord said to him, "This is the land I promised with an oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob when I said, I will give it to your descendants." And then a devastating line, I think. God says to him, "I have let you see it with your eyes, but you will not cross over into it." I've let you see it with your eyes, but you ain't going to go there. Okay? Kind of like another one of those pivotal verses. This is at the end of Deuteronomy. Remember at the beginning of Exodus 1:8. Then there arose a new king over Egypt who did not know Pharaoh. Pivotal verse. Now here, Moses leads the people all the way. God says, this is the land that I've been talking about this whole time. You've been leading the people for 40 years. I've let you see it with your eyes, but you're not going to go over there. Remember the Charlie Brown cartoon where, Charlie Brown is getting ready to kick the football with Lucy, and I'm going to hold it this time. Lucy falls back flat on his back. That happens so many times. Every time Charlie Brown believed it, every time she pulled it out and he landed flat on his back. This is kind of one of those, I think, kind of Charlie Brown moments of the rug is pulled out, Charlie Brown falls on his back. Moses, I've let you see it with your eyes, but you're not going to go over there. Just a fascinating dynamic happening there. Moses leads the people through the wilderness wanderings, the 40 years and all of that. Now, here's the land, Moses. I've let you see it with your eyes, but you're not going to go over there. Can you identify with the feelings and then Moses died at the end of Deuteronomy. He dies and he's buried. And then Joshua arises. We'll talk about Joshua next week, who actually brings the people into the promised land. But think of that time that Moses must have been up there. I mean, God let him see it with his eyes, but he's not going to be able to go over there. Think of that Mount Nebo experience of Moses being up there. Here it is, Moses. Let it sink in a little bit because it's such a profound verse. I've let you see it with your eyes, but you're not going to go over there. Think of that Mount Nebo moment for Moses, and then think of maybe other people you've known, or maybe you've had a Mount Nebo experience, that there's a job or career, basic health, retirement, long life, and all of a sudden the stuff that you've been looking forward to isn't going to happen. a miscarriage, a divorce, whatever that might be. I mean, how do you make sense of those Mount Nebo moments? I think that's a time in many of our lives when our faith is shaken with a Mount Nebo moment. I mean, think of Charlie Brown. He's up in the air thinking, oh no, why did I believe that? And then boom, he's on his back. I mean, how do you make sense of that? How do you keep believing in spite of difficult situations? How do you live like we do between promise and fulfillment? Well, I think there's a way that we can think about that, because in the Bible there are really 6 phases or stages between promise and fulfillment, between dream and fulfillment of that dream. First is that God gives us a dream. God opens a door. God puts a calling on our lives. Noah, I want you to build an ark. Abraham, I want you to be the father of a great nation. David, you're a little punk kid, a shepherd, and I want you to be the king over all of Israel. Nehemiah, why don't you go down to Jerusalem and rebuild those walls of Jerusalem? God gives us a dream. You've had those dreams. Think for a little bit about a dream that God has given you. That's a first phase or a stage. Second phase or a stage is decision. What you gonna do? What are you gonna do with that dream that God gave you? Are you gonna follow that dream or not? If you don't follow it, it's just kind of fleeting and it goes away. But if you decide that you're going to fulfill it, that means that you need to make a decision to do what it takes to get there. I mean, Moses, Pharaoh, Nehemiah made a decision to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. Abraham, when God said, go and I'm going to make of you a great nation, Abraham went. He took Lot with him. There was trouble with that, but he went. So you've got a dream, you've got a decision, and then the third stage or phase is delay. This is a difficult time because so many of us get bogged down when God gives us a dream or a premonition or something, we decide to go after it, and then there's a delay. Delays are times when Noah waited for 120 years for it to rain while he was building the ark. Abraham waited until he was 99 years old to have a child. Moses waited for 40 years wandering in the wilderness and then still didn't get over there. Joseph, that we talked about, waited years in prison before he was able to finally get that. It delayed for quite a while before he was able to bring his whole family down to Egypt. David waited for years after being a king. Jesus waited 30 years before he began his public ministry. For those 3 years, there's always delays. It doesn't, don't you wish? I'm not a patient guy. I think you know that. Patience is not one of my virtues. I don't have patience, but delay doesn't mean denial. When a dream is delayed, we might start to think, well, God, I thought you gave me this dream. I embraced it. I decided to go after it. Now what is this delay? But it's just a part of the way God works. And it's one thing I'm going to ask God when I get to heaven. Why did you give people and me so many delays? Because after delay, that dream decision delay, there's a difficulty phase. Difficulty is part of the way that God works with us. Moses let 1 million people imagine the difficulty he faced in bringing those people for those 40 years. The difficulties of Noah, getting 2 of every. I wish he would have left the mosquitoes, but Noah, the difficulty in getting 2 of all of the animals. David was anointed to be the king of Israel, but then he was chased by the king Saul for a very long time before he was actually able to be the king. And then you come to the 5th phase where you just seem like they come to a dead end. Your get up and gone has got up and went, and all you want to do is quit. You come to a 5th stage, which is the dead end. And you just kind of think, maybe the door's been slammed in my face. Maybe it's Not going to happen at all. It's then when you realize, as I've said so many times, when God is all you got, God's all you need. God is all you need, because the sixth stage is deliverance. God does a miracle when everything else seems to be failing. God parts the Red Sea. God gives a son to Abraham when he's about 100 years old. God provides a ram for the sacrifice, so Isaac doesn't have to be sacrificed. God delivered Lazarus out of the tomb after he'd been dead there for 4 days. Remember the song, "He who began a good work in you will be faithful to complete it," because God does eventually complete the work that God began in us. The sixth stage is deliverance. God delivers, God finishes. God doesn't pull the football away so we land flat on our backs. What God starts, God finishes. Where God guides, God provides. So keep aware of those things, those stages. When you feel like Moses on Mount Nebo, when everything's, you see the promised land, but you ain't going to go over there. That difficult time at the end of Deuteronomy, or on page 88 in our book. You just got to keep on believing, keep on hanging on, keep on pursuing what you really feel God has given to you through those 6 phases or stages. Eventually, from that dream, all of those difficult times, decision, delay, dead end, finally will result in deliverance, because I can do all things through Him, through Christ, who strengthens me. So we're ending with Moses now. We begin with Joshua next week. Joshua is a fascinating story also. It's the 6th book of the Bible. We'll get into that a whole lot more on the Thursday preview, Sunday preview, then the sermon next Sunday, the adult forum, and then the Monday, there's more to the story. So hang in there. Thanks for listening. I look forward to seeing you sometime soon. Until then, you take care. Bye-bye.